This podcast contains strong language and discussions about relationships, sex, and love. It may not be suitable for younger listeners. This is the Can't Keep My Mouth Shut podcast, and I am Nixalina. Hi, Nixalina here, and welcome back to part 2 of 10 early red flags of abusive partners. How do we all feel about last week's episode? That was intense, right? And this is going to be just as bad, if not worse. My apologies, but we have to deal with the really shitty, horrible, nasty, negative side of life. Someone needs to talk about it, and that someone is me. Because I've lived through a lot of this, sadly, as well. So without further ado, we're going to delve in. Please do go back and re-listen if you need a refresh. And what I would like to point out, once again, as I did at the start of last week's episode, that abuse is gradual. Physical and emotional abuse doesn't start right away. We do not victim shame in this house. No, we do not. And victims who get this "why did you stay" attitude of people, they ignore because they're ignorant, and abuse is insidious, and they really do a number on your mental health and your physical health and every aspect of your life. And I get it. I've stayed way too long in many relationships where I should have left, and it does take victims up to 7 attempts to leave abusive partners. So we do not shame anyone. Okay, without further ado, we jump right in. Point 6. They have anger issues. If someone's emotional profile leans towards anger, that usually entails they are more abusive over, say, someone's emotional profile that leads towards anxiety or sadness or insecurity. Anger is a secondary emotion. I hope most of you understand this, and it usually covers an underlying emotion. But a lot of these abusers, they're unable to delve into actually what's underneath the anger, right? So rather than sitting with themselves or going to therapy or working through traumas or understanding what's really going on, they go towards anger. Obviously, this then lends to abuse in the home. Someone who has a baseline of irritability and externalizes that and projects that onto another person, especially with the anger profile, they're more likely to be abusive. And if you combine anger with substance abuse, even if it's just binge drinking or they drink daily or they drink too much, this can definitely escalate both emotional and physical abuse. One of my exes had definitely a temper, an anger problem, which only came out once we started living together. That's another thing we should really highlight. These abusers don't walk into your life and they're like, "Hey, I'm abusive. Yo, first day, I'll fuck you up." No, they're very different at the beginning. Once my partner moved in, I really saw that anger come out, and I would be stonewalled, which is basically when they go silent on you for hours. They just shut down. I would be spoken down to. I could tell just in his eyes, like when he was angry and silent and broody, or I'd get reactive if, say, we've been drinking. He's more overtly angry, like before he's chucked his watch across the room, he's ripped something up that meant something to me. An angry man. And whilst I'd struggle with this one because I am tempestuous, I'm not this shy, introverted, submissive woman. I am submissive in the bedroom, but we all know this already. But as a character profile, I'm dominating, I'm strong, I'm assertive, I'm opinionated. So when someone does have that level of temper or emotional, I do try and reason it with them, and I do try and sit with it, and I do try and evaluate, like, okay, this is why this happened, and I can always try and see their side of you, and I probably do it to the detriment of myself, because anger problems and tempers that are seemingly part of their character profile is a sign of an abusive partner. Point 7, isolation. They try to isolate you from your friends and family. They try and perhaps physically move you somewhere else, so somewhere more remote where you have no support system around you. Isolation is an interesting one because they will not do it in a way, once again, where they show up and go, do you know what? Fuck all your friends, fuck all your family. That's not how it works. I have one example with my ex. He met one of my girlfriends twice on a night out. And lovely girl. I'm just talking on the night out. She did not say anything wrong. She did not do anything wrong. She's very sociable, very chatty. And he turns around to me and says, I'm really good judge of character. I think you need to keep that girl at arm's length. And I remember being like, what? Why? And he's like, just trust me on this. Like, she's no good. She's not trustworthy. She's not good for you. You need to keep her at arm's length. Ironically, she's one of the most authentic, genuine, kind, open, loving girlfriends I've had. And I've encountered some shady, shitty, fake as fuck women on this island. And this girl is the opposite. And yet she's the one he picked out to try and tell me to keep her at arm's length. And he'd done it very nicely. He'd done it very softly. And he'd done it in a way of, I'm a better judge of character than you are. And he knows I feel like I'm not a good judge of character because I always end up with narcissists. I always end up with fake friends. I always end up with, I say always, I'm exaggerating now. But he knew that my internal dialogue is like, I don't know my own judgment with people because, the fiance, there I am thinking we're happy, I'm going to marry him. I was so happy. And he's sleeping with someone else. Do you know what I mean? So this ex kind of used my internal dialogue to say I'm the best judge of character. I know what's right for you more than you know what's right for you. You can't see it because you think everyone is lovely, but she's not. Keep her at arm's length. And it's super shit because thank God I didn't listen to him, but I can see it looking back. Like, I could have lost a friendship if I'd remained in that relationship. If I'd carried on, I wouldn't have had a choice because every time I would have tried to go out with her, he would have been like, I told you not to go out with this girl. That's where it was going to. And what they usually do is they isolate you from friends or family that can see right through them. Friends or family that can step back and be like, something's wrong here. Friends and family that will say to you, Nix, you're not happy. There's an issue. Those types of people in your life, your support system, they're the ones that they'll try and find a reason to isolate you from, or, like I said earlier, they just move you. Oh, babe, we should move to this part, or we should move to Vietnam, or we should move to, I don't know, anywhere. Or it could be within the country that you live in, or it could be across the globe. Anywhere where you've got fucking no one except them to lean on, that's their ultimate isolation goal. Point 8. Punishment. This comes in various forms. I've spoke about it earlier. So one is the silent treatment, i.e. stonewalling. I would be punished if I spoke out. I'd be punished if I raised my voice because he did something I didn't like. I'd be punished if I did anything out wrong. And I mean punished as in he would be silent in my home for, say, up to 5 hours a time. And it was a horrible, awful atmosphere where, I'd be like cooking food or doing some work on my computer and he's just there brooding and angry, and I'd talk to him and I'd get ignored. Or if I went out and I text him because he's stonewalling me, he'd ignore every message for 3 or 4 hours, and then I come home and he still won't talk to me. It was fucking awful. And I couldn't get him to stop. I couldn't get him to open up, and I'd come home and I'd be like, what the fuck is your problem? What have I done so wrong that you won't fucking speak to me for 6 hours? What, because I asked you to put your laundry away? You think that can't be true. Word for word. That would be something that would happen, and it happened. I dared to ask him to put his laundry away that had been sitting out, a bag of clothes he just bought for a month. It'd been sitting out for a month, and I dared to say, baby, can you please put that bag of clothes away now? Oh, chucked that bag on the floor. In fact, he chucked it into the living room from the bedroom. Screams at me, I'll do things when I want to fucking do them. And then doesn't talk to me for 6 hours. Because I left the house, went off to a health screening, and I didn't say goodbye. You see how it was my fault? So he gets angry because he's been dared to ask to do a light house chore. Just put his own clothes away. Nothing huge. Gets annoyed. Gets intimidating, throws the bag into the living room, the bag of clothes, screams at me, and then expects me to say, bye, baby, when I leave the house. And I didn't because of that behaviour. I silently left the house, and then I get ignored 5 or 6 hours later. Like, what the fuck? That's stonewalling for you. And what happens with stonewalling is basically you become so focused on getting them to talk to you or be nice again, you forget what's happened to begin with. You forget the reason this is even happening. It weren't even about the laundry at the end of it. I come back home and I was like, look at what you've done. And he's like, well, you left without saying goodbye, rah, rah, rah. And this is one incident. I got stonewalled all the time. And I'd basically just give up in the end and just wait for him to come over and cuddle me. And he'd come over and he'd put his arms around me, peck me on the head, because I never got decent kisses anymore, peck me on the head, and that meant, okay, you're done with your punishment now, we can be nice again. Fucking mental. Even I'm annoyed. Can you listen to my voice? I'm now annoyed, but going back knowing I lived through that. Okay, let's move on. More punishment is them playing the victim when you confront them about how they treated you. That I've just done that as a perfect example. He's a victim because I left the house without saying goodbye, not what he just did to me earlier. They also blame shift. They get you to apologise for their mistakes. And it's just basically like they trying to get you to conform to what they want. If they fuck up, somehow you're to blame. They're the victim. Punishment can also be they go off and do exactly what they know you wouldn't like. So like the night one of my exes and I separated, he got very angry and standard and left me in a hotel. And he went off to a KTV and filmed it on his social media so I could see it. And that was one of the places I was really very much not happy with him going. Punishing me. He punished me because he got angry at the hotel. So he thought, fuck her. And I will tell you now, I did nothing wrong. I left him to have a nap because he wanted a nap. And I didn't want to have a nap. I'd had some champagne. I wanted to go out. We had free flow in an hour. I wanted to go and live a little, take some videos, be present. I dared to leave the hotel room alone. I dared to be out of his sight. I dared to leave him. He was topless in the bed, leave him to have a nap. That's what I did wrong. That's why he broke up with me. And he was so angry that I left the hotel room. And he was so angry that he said he would get changed with me. And I was like, but you're topless asleep on the bed. So I thought I'll just let you have a nap. He was so angry I left the hotel room, he leaves me. And he goes off to a KTV. To punish me. That's why he filmed it. To punish me. It's fucking mental, isn't it? It's so fucked up. Hi, allow me to pop right in here for a quick break and introduce you to today's sponsor, which is the Meat Club, an online food delivery service based in Singapore. These guys started out in 2014 because they were finding it difficult to source high-quality, affordable meat in Singapore. And I totally get where they're coming from. I really struggle with my home cooking on finding the produce. Now, I love to cook a British Sunday roast dinner. If you're on my Instagram, you know it's my thing. But it's always about the produce and ingredients you start off with. And so when I found the Meat Club, I was really excited to try out their fresh, organic, cage-free chicken, the vegetables. They source everything from New Zealand and Australia, so that kind of tells you the quality of food that you're dealing with. Now, they're not a butcher's, so let's get that straight. They do not touch, fill, see, or open any of the produce. They completely trust their suppliers to bring in the best food, which means they also remove any unnecessary freezing and defrosting cycles. Basically, you're getting, I say as best you can, farm to table, given we do live in the city, right? Now, with these guys, the subscription service that they offer, you can do it every week, every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks, or you could even do a one-off shop just to dip your toe in, see if you like it. But I love how they take the hassle and the stress out of worrying whether my kitchen and fridge is going to be full of food or not. You can do quite literally a click, set and forget subscription model with them. That's it, done and dusted. You don't need to worry anymore. They also offer $140 in rewards with your subscription service. And if you use my personal code, NIX15, that's NIX15, you will receive $15 off at checkout. So once again, thank you so much to the Meat Club for sponsoring today's episode. And thank you for making my personal roast dinners taste even better. And with that, we'll head back to the story. Okay, point 9, they take away your privacy. They usually ensure you have zero personal privacy. This comes in all forms, but basically, one of my examples, read through my journals. I'm convinced he read my recent journal, even though he'd swear, I only read all your old ones just because I wanted to get to know you. And it kind of backfired on him because I wrote a lot about my fiancé. And he read about it, and then he got insecure and would ask me things like, do you miss your ex-fiancé's big dick? Yeah, I did. Yeah. Fucking actually, good question. Yeah, I did. Who the fuck asks that? But it spiraled because he could see in my journals how in love I was with my ex-fiancé. I was like, of course I was in love with him. I was going to fucking marry him. But this was 2 years ago, bro. Come on. So they take away your privacy, things like your phone, anything, any documents, and physical privacy. Like I said, I couldn't use the bathroom with the door closed, especially not locked. And I mean, I couldn't use the bathroom. There was one time I was on the toilet, he puts his head through, and I end up having to slam the door into his head, and I felt so guilty about it, but I was in such an uncomfortable, anxious stage, and I was like, get out, get out, get out, and I'm just on the toilet, right? Come on. I'm just sitting on the toilet, and I couldn't even do that alone. But you fucking bet he locked the door whenever he went to the loo. What was that? What point was double standards? Oh yeah, point 3 in last week's episode. Double standards. There you go. He locked the door every time he needed the loo. I was not allowed. No. And he'd go, you know what? If you want to prove you love me, you will use the bathroom in front of me. Jesus Christ. I just can't regale this anymore. Anyway, they take away your privacy. You basically don't exist as a person without them. You're not a singular human anymore. You are part of them. An extension, if you will, but not in a good way. And finally, point 10 is gaslighting. This is so incredibly bad for your mental state. And they gaslight often. I mean, I'm trying to think, if you go, well, what, do they gaslight straight away? No, it's the same as everything else. They'll be perfect and loving and amazing. Then the gaslighting creeps in. The gaslighting is basically, they rewrite reality so that you can't trust your own experiences anymore. So, for instance, we take my example with my ex where we spoke about my sagging face. I actually brought it up later on. And I was like, do you know how cruel it is that I bent down to kiss you? And what you do is you hold my face in your hands and you say, your face is sagging. What are we going to do about it? And then you pull my face up by my temples. He's like, that never happened that way. And I'm like, what? And we're sober, daytime. Like, I remember it. And he's like, no, you were talking about fillers and I've just pulled your face and said, oh, well, where are you having the fillers then? What are you doing? Bollocks! That didn't happen. And I know it didn't because I have evidence it didn't happen that way because I went off and booked my fillers appointment because of that fucking comment from him. So the timeline, I've already worked out the timeline. It's impossible for that to have been the way he said it happened because I had never fucking booked face fillers. I hadn't done face fillers before that. So he reckons I bent down for a kiss and he was interested to know how fillers works and that's why he pulled my face up because he's like, yeah, tell me where you're getting them. Bollocks. I bent down and he said, your face is sagging. What are we going to do about it? He'd also say other stuff, to be fair, like I'd see moles. I got 2 moles on my armpit. I mean, I've got moles everywhere. I'm half ginger, people. I'm freckly and I'm moly and I'm British and I don't give a fuck. And he'd go, what are those? I go, baby, they're moles. Tiny, tiny little moles. And he'd go, yeah, remove them. What? And why are you speaking to me like that about my body? Why would I don't give a fuck about the moles. Why would I remove them? Just stuff like this. So I know for damn sure the way I remembered that convo about my face was accurate and he was gaslighting me. I guarantee if I said, do you remember that time you were having a go at me about 2 moles in my armpit? He went, no, I didn't. You pointed them out, said you didn't like them. And I just said, well, remove them then. That's how he would tell it. Gaslighting is so scary and it makes you so angry because you're like, you start to then question it. Well, was I truthful? Is that and the other? And this is why fucking journal, because there's so much shit in my journal that I read back and really understood how much of the gaslighting I'd been living with. Because I'd be writing stuff at the time and months later he's changing the narrative. But I've already secretly wrote it in my journal because it's something I'm experiencing. I'm like, this happened and that happened. So now I can go back and really factually look at it and be like, you fucking lying piece of shit. Gaslighting is one of the most psychologically damaging manipulation technique that abusers will use. And if you live with it for a long time, it grinds you down to nothing. And it makes you a shadow of yourself. You can't trust your own reality. Imagine that. Not even being able to trust your own memory or reality unless they say so. My bonus point number 11. Bonus sounds like it's fun. It's the absolute opposite, is strangulation. So I was not aware of this until this year. And you should probably, if you haven't listened to my first episode yet, which I hope you have, you should probably go back and listen to that because point 5, I talk about when one of my exes put his hands around my throat. And this was quite early on in the relationship as well, and it was more than once. I think in total, he's put his hand, one around the back of my neck, back of my throat, pushing me, once on the front of my throat, anger pushing me, and then a third time where I thought it was going to be like sexy fun, but it wasn't. In hindsight, he just put his arm around my throat. But I don't really count that, but maybe I should have. Anyway, strangulation. I need to make this very, very fucking clear. If a woman's partner has ever strangled her, even once, her risk of being murdered by that same partner shoots up to 750% more likely compared to a woman who has never been strangled. Let's just let that sink in. So whilst we've gone through abuse in these 2 episodes, there's many different abuses. We know it's like physical, mental, psychological, and there's also financial abuse as well, and it's all awful. But I didn't realise that strangulation, say above hitting, punching, kicking, shoving, strangulation is the single greatest predictor of homicide in abusive relationships. A partner who strangles you, even just once, is more likely to kill you. And that's a 750% statistical increase. It also usually highlights that it would be within the next year of the first time they put their hands around your throat, which is terrifying. And obviously, if the victim sustains multiple strangulations and there's multiple different aspects where the hand is around the throat, the risk, of course, rises. So a couple more statistics for this strangulation. 45% of attempted homicides in domestic violence situations against women involved non-fatal strangulation. 70% of women who have been strangled did believe they were going to die, and 38% reported losing consciousness. Wow. And this is stats, right? So Cassie Gwynn, I think I said her name correctly, the co-founder of the Training Institute of Strangulation Prevention, says that research has now made it clear that when a man puts his hands around a woman's neck, he has just raised his hand and said, "I'm a killer." How fucking terrifying is that? The personality profile of a strangler is one of rage and homicidal violence. And I tell you why it's frightening, because I've lived it more than once. More than once. I couldn't tell you the amount of times my boyfriend, when I was 16, put his hands around my neck. I couldn't tell you. And I was with him for 2 years. I do have a whole episode on that, of my domestic abusive, violent relationship with him. But I had no idea about this. And even now, I've reached 37 and I've still allowed someone else to put his hands around my neck. And you're going to be like, "Oh my God, why didn't you fucking leave the next morning?" Well, because I got blamed for it. Because I flipped the phone out of his hand. So I started the violence, didn't I? It was my fault. I flipped the phone away so that he'd stop looking at his phone, stop scrolling on Insta and Facebook, and actually talk to me, because I was being stonewalled for the 20th billionth time during an argument that he started with me because I disappeared for 2 hours at work. Dare I not let him know exactly where I am 24/7? I got his hands around my neck, and I was made to believe it was my fault. And it's sad. I look back, I've got texts. Like, I have proof because the next day I'm texting him about it. I am texting him about it. So there you go. Should a guy ever lay a hand around your neck in a non-consensual, non-sexual way, because we know I love my domination in bed. You know, asphyxiation is my thing in bed. I do love it. If it is not that, and it's in rage, and it's not part of a bedroom thing, and it's not consensual, and they just go for your throat, they will at some point probably want to kill you. Please never make my mistakes and don't fucking leave the next day. I wish I'd left. I shouldn't be texting him explaining how it fucking hurts, what he did to me. I shouldn't be texting him saying, "You are stronger than me. You can't put your hand around my throat like that. You can't push me by my neck like that." I shouldn't have been doing it. And it terrifies me that I did. So please heed my words. And I cannot believe this statistic with strangulation. I only just very recently found this out, and it's scary. But it's true. This isn't a stat made up on the internet on some fucking Reddit forum. It is known. It's a fact. And especially with homicide within abusive relationships, within the home. Strangulation is your number one. Not hitting, not punching, not kicking, not throwing objects, not shoving into a wall. Strangulation is the one that they will at some point kill you. Wow. That is a horrible, horrible way to have to leave an episode. But it is also a horrible 2 episodes, isn't it? And I'm fine. I finally feel like I got it out of my system, and it's been something that I've had to really process about, talking about for a while. Because it's just difficult, for me to regale some of the shit I've been on the receiving end of. But I have to. I feel like I have to. I feel like it's my responsibility to do so. And it can't all be fluffy, fun sex stuff, can it? Because that ain't life. Oh, what sex position shall we do this week? Luckily, I've never done an episode like that. But you know what I mean? It can't all be airs and graces or, dating, Tinder profile, whatever. It has to be real, and this is real, and this is real life. And I'm a best case scenario of women that do end up abused and do end up in abusive relationships and do end up loving someone who is very bad for them, but believes it's their fault because of how the dynamics of the relationship has grown. And it's, if I can fall prey to it, I know a lot of other people can. So hopefully this has helped. If any of this hits home, firstly, my apologies. Secondly, my DMs are always open. I say this every week, and I'm glad that you guys do take me up on this, but you can slide into my DMs. I say Instagram and TikTok, but it's probably you get a faster response on Instagram. It's at Nixalina, Nixalina. And if you need me, I'm here for you. And with that, we will end this 2-part series, and I look forward to do something way more fun and uplifting next week. Thanks for listening to the Can't Keep My Mouth Shut podcast, produced and hosted by me, Nixalina, and recorded in the Splice Cast Studios in Singapore. I'm available to listen to on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, and all major podcast listening apps. Do subscribe to enjoy a new episode every Monday evening. Please do give me a 5-star review. It helps other people also find my podcast. For more content and features to read, you can check out my website, nixalina.com. That's nixalina.com. I'm also on social media. Simply search at Nixalina, Nixalina, to find me. Don't be shy. Come say hi.